Sorry about it. All right, we're live now. We're back. You all, thank you for all those who we had a little technical difficulty, but maybe the internet. I feel like the internet's probably taking a little break, drinking a little rum, kind of being relaxed.
That's exactly what we did.
That's what we did. That's what what I did. So we're back with my good friend Guillaume Lemay from Plantation Rum, and just to give us a little background, this is a brand that is part of the Pierre Ferrand Maison Ferrand portfolio. How long has Plantation Rum been around?
Oh wow, Plantation Rum. I think the first bottles that we ever labeled were Plantation were back in 2000, 2001.
Excellent.
So, we started with three different vintages. We only had three SKUs at the time, three different ones. And that was Barbados 1986, Jamaica 1991, and Jamaica 1993, and Trinidad 1991.
Wow.
And they were just delicious vintages.
Wow. And are those still, can you find those at all anymore?
Oh, it's very hard to find. And sometimes there are actually vintages that we did at a time with a waxed cap, and
Wow.
So if you see any vintage Plantation Rums with a wax cap, those are the very first releases ever. That was about 20 years ago. And the 1986 was from West Indies Rum Distillery. And I found a six-pack once, and I still have two bottles here at home.
So those would be pretty rare, and probably they would probably fetch. I mean, if we did see them, they would be something people would be selling for a lot, probably.
Or maybe, yes. On the internet, you always have collectors, willing to go long ways, to get something rare.
Right.
Back then, it's crazy. I think they were selling in stores for $25 a bottle or something like this. They were like 10-year-old delicious rums. That 1993 Jamaica is absolutely incredible. I think one of the very last people that I know that I had one was Jason Alexander, the owner of Devil's Reef in Tacoma. That's another great tiki bar, by the way. Yes. Just an incredible place. And he had some of that, and not anymore. We drank it.
How was the brand created? What was the inspiration for creating the brand back in the early 2000s?
Back then it was really Alexandre Gabriel, who is the owner and master blender at Maison Ferrand. He's a great guy. I've worked for him now for over 20 years. And he was making cognac still today, Grand Champagne cognac, Ferrand cognac, and gin. And for some reason, he got some barrels of rum in France. And we started basically aging rum in cognac cask. And he's always been a man of very intense research on how spirits were made. It's like he could always take the training from people that were like alive around him, but then he could never stop, learning from what was in books and different material that would tell you how rum, for example, was made 200 years ago. So he was fascinated by that whole double maturation process, for example, in Navy rums, in the London docks, and he just decided to do something similar. We never invented anything by aging rum in cognac cask in France. It was done way, way before us. It's just like nobody was doing it anymore. There was not a cask of rum anywhere in France. Maybe a few people in Europe were aging rum and then reselling it, as a broker, but nobody was really bottling it, aging it, blending it, and bottling it with their own label and their own know-how on how to age and source and delicious rum. So we started a lot with Barbados Rum. So Barbados, Jamaica, and Trinidad were really our first tries. And then we expanded our library of rums in cognac to many different origins. As of today, we probably have up to 11 different origins in our cellars with around 40,000 casks. So it's a very nice little library. We have about 7 different cellars. Some of them are humid cellars, so we also like to do humid and dry cellars, a little bit like we do with cognac.
Right.
And the majority of those casks, a good 95%, are French oak and cognac cask.
Excellent. And you were just mentioning to me a little earlier, one of the upcoming releases you're really excited about from Plantation will be what?
Ah, so uh, yes. So this is the work of what, 6 years, 7 years
Right.
of collaboration talks. Because when we make a signature blend, which is like the 5 year of Barbados, or the Jamaica from Jamaica, uh, or that XO from Barbados. Those signature blends for us can only be made if we have a very strong relationships with the distillery that we work with, in the way that we don't only buy stuff from them, but we actually collaborate on the products that we make. So we have a say in the distillation, but they have a say in the way that we also blend things and age. That's also
Right.
important, that they like what we do as much as we like what they do. And
Right.
in Fiji, it took us a long time, to become to that point where, yes, let's make a baby together, that kind of thing. And that's exactly what happened. We made finally it's out. It's been released in the summer, but we have a beautiful Fiji, an expression of the terroir of Fiji, that Alexandre brought to them about 2 months ago, to taste the whole crew there, because there was only the master distiller who had it before, and
Right.
everybody loved it. So for us, this is like the most important, that the guys that actually work in the distillery love the rum that we blended and bottled in France with that Fiji origin. It's called I Love Fiji.
I love Fiji.
Yes, I can. I'm gonna share it actually with you, if I can find the
Oh,
file.
excellent.
If you can see what it looks like.
Sure.
Let's see if it works. Bear with me, because I have the computer knowledge of a Neanderthal. So let's see. Can you see it?
I can share Guillaume's screen. Yes, very nicely done. There it is. Isle of Fiji, and that
Yeah.
is that's a beautiful label. And what are we looking at here?
So you're looking at the beauty of Fiji. That's what it is. I'm sorry, it's in France, so it's an ode to the beauty of the Fijian Islands.
Right.
It's Fijian rums. To be a little bit more technical, so we talked about esters for Jamaica.
Right.
Uh, Fijian rums don't have. They have a lot of esters,
Right.
but they also have a lot of what we call high alcohol.
Yep.
And that high alcohol is a compound that you will find a lot in sometimes Guyanese rums,
Right.
and they give you that beautiful chocolate and almost like fusel oil, sometimes the type of character that is absolutely delicious. That's very unique. And that's what I said to you a little bit earlier. This is like Martinique and Guyana had a baby together. You have that agricole feel to it, but at the same time, it's very much molasses. And this is a blend of pot and column, and it's basically a 3 years base with some older components to it, very much like the Jamaica.
Very
So you can call it like a sibling of Jamaica, but from the Pacific.
from the Pacific, and that's going to be about what's the ages on those rums again are going to be
So,
around
so it's 2 to 3 years on the island,
2 to 3 years.
and then 1 more year to 2 more years in cognac, depending on the
Oh,
blend.
yeah.
And then we also add some older ones. It's a really old way of doing things that we've
Right.
been doing forever in cognac, not just us, is to add like older components to create even more depth to it. And
Excellent.
we have an incredible collection of old Fiji rums as well, because in those all those years, you know, we were not ready to do something together, but we were already collecting pretty hard.
Already collected. And
Uh,
we'll show you.
there is one coming up, and I sent, I like literally just sent all the specs to my distributors today. But we
Mhm.
only have 226 packs of that for all North America. It's going to be called the Fiji 2005 vintage. It's a
Wow.
15-year-old Fiji rum, absolutely incredible.
So this will be really a rare offering. The one we're looking at, though, will be a little easier to find. That Isle of
So
Fiji.
this one will be for every single store in America. Just like the 5 year or the Jamaica, we want to make those terroirs as widely available as possible. And
Right.
then that rare little gem, the 2005 vintage, which is going to be like 50% alcohol. So it's not also. I mean, it's more for people like you, Tom.
Right. High proof, right?
But I mean, I like both. Frankly, I can drink both type of products. It's just like sometimes you want different type of wines,
Sure.
and the spirits are very much the same way, very versatile. You don't have to always drink 50% alcohol.
Right.
You can always have something easier to drink, but I also have a lot of pleasure doing it.
Sure. Absolutely. And again, the Isle of Fiji out later in August, and also the
Yeah.
Fiji
So
2000
as a matter of fact, both of them will be coming in pretty much at the same time.
same time.
Even though I think the Fiji 2005 is already bottled, but the Isle of Fiji will be bottled in June.
Bottle in June. Roughly, what will be the retail price on each of those? Any idea?
So the 2005 vintage will be about $80 a bottle,
Right.
and the Isle of Fiji will be around $25-$26 retail.
Wow. Excellent. We're going to look forward to tasting those. And if someone said they're already marking their calendar there, and again, if you're just joining us,
But it's so nice of them for not leaving.
they're not, that's right. We're this is the part 2 of our chat tonight with Guillaume Lemay, Vice President Americas for the Plantation Rum.
It's a big title.
It's a big title, right? We're tasting the Plantation Rums, and we also love their cognac, the Pierre Fron's amazing stuff, and just a great family of products, and it's always fun. So, you know what, we didn't actually try this one yet. We're gonna move on. So if you have a question for Guillaume about cognac, rum, whatever it might be, ask down below. We're gonna try the Barbados Rum, the XO, which I just poured myself a little bit of. I love
I
this.
also have one.
Look at that, matching bottles. Very nice. So this one's beautiful, and we've actually featured this some on our whiskey educational and spirit education series, and we actually paired this a couple years ago when I was doing some cigar pairings, and we actually still do pair this with some cigars. This went really nicely with some Davidoff and Camacho cigars when we were on that tour, the rum cigar. But tell us about this one? How does this is the 20th anniversary, right?
Yes, so 20th anniversary. That was actually a blend. That's funny. This is the one of the most, Alexandre will always loves it when I say that, but actually he loves it because that's really that's really an incredible homage to what he does with his team, because that was not made by him.
Wow.
It was made by his team. There was the guys in the cellar blending that for him as a gift for his 20th anniversary as master blender at Ferrand, at Maison Ferrand. Okay, so he loved it so much that he decided to make it a regular product in the line. That's how 20th anniversary XO was born. And to this day,
So
he cannot take credit for the blend. That's not his. That's the guys.
they originally did a small limited batch for a gift for him, and he said, "This is so good. We have to."
But they made so he just celebrated his 30th anniversary last May, and guess what they did?
What'd they do?
They gave him another cask. They gave him another cask of this time of a very old Long Pond, a 30-year-old Long Pond Jamaican rum. So this one will open it in 10 years.
So you'll wait 10 years to open.
Yeah. But frankly, that's one of the most delicious products we've ever released at Plantation Rum. We're very proud of this.
It's so lovely.
And also the beauty of this is that you probably know, 2.5 years ago, we finally got married with one of our most loyal and longest supplier, a West Indies rum distillery in Barbados.
Right.
So we decided to, after dating for so long, we decided to become a family. And then there are the same guys there operating that they have been operating the distillery since the beginning, that we've been actually working with them. And in that XO you have West Indies rum distillery. It's 10 years minimum, aged in tropical, climate in bourbon cask. It's a blend of pot and column. So very typical Barbados rum. You have around 15, 17% of pot still, and then it's a column still. And all those barrels, after they travel on the ocean, go to France and age for a minimum of 2 years, all the way up to 10. So it's technically 12 years minimum, all the way up to 20.
So it starts in Barbados. It's at least 10 there in used bourbon casks. And it goes to Cognac France, and it goes into a new cognac barrel to rest for anywhere from a couple to 10 years. So some of this stuff is 20 or older, right?
But this is a very intricate blend. To actually integrate a blend like this, products like this you cannot blend in 24 hours.
Right.
To blend this properly, you need to have a minimum what we call coupage in cognac. So it's more like a process of integration between different layers that are the same proof, so that you have a perfect harmony between all the different compounds of alcohol, the complexity of the alcohol. You need a minimum of a year, or like 14 months to really blend this correctly and get that whole complexity. So yes, there is always an XO being worked on at the estate when you come to cognac. That's for sure.
Right.
And we sent and finally we sent it back to Barbados, and we actually bottled it in Barbados as well at West Indies for domestic market. So this is a huge pride for us because it's also distributed on the island. And this is one of the most awarded Barbados rum in the world. In the last 10 years, we got 23 gold medals with that baby.
Wow!
This, it's distributed in 71 countries in the world, and we got 23 gold medals. And the guys in Barbados love it. So we're very proud of this.
So beautiful. So Barbados, then France, then back to Barbados. But in between, it's at least taking a year or so for those rums to blend together. Why do you all take so long with the blending? I mean, why does it make such a difference with?
Because one, there is a lot of ingredients.
Right.
And then the system of blending, if you want to do it right, you always want to start progressively. It's called progressive blending, where you do some reduction of alcohol to always get to the right proof before you blend a new ingredient that will be at that proof. Example, if you start with a product that usually would be the base, around 55 or 56% alcohol, then you will need to have a reduction on this before you blend with a product that will be at a lesser ABV, probably around 48, 49. To reduce that alcohol, you need time, because if you put a reduction agent, which is not always osmosis water, by the way, it could be alcoholized water. This is much better to do it that way, because if you have a little bit of alcohol in the water, you don't shock the spirit as much as if you use osmosis water. So to do that reduction, you do it gradually so that you don't shock the alcohol. And just a reduction of 6 or 7% sometimes could take a few months. And then once you get to that level, you take the other ingredient, you blend them together, you have another marrying integration process that will also take some time. And then guess what? You have to reduce a little bit to 42 or 43% to take the other ingredient, put it in there. So if you add up all those times of reduction and integration of the different layers, then you can go fast to 8, 9, 10 months, 14 months. Okay, of course, the older the product, the more complex the product, the more ingredients, the more fragile will be some of the pieces in that puzzle. So you have to be very careful about what you do, when you do it, at what proof, what temperature. Blending is an art.
Really.
That's why these guys are called master blenders.
Right. And I'm glad you're explaining that to us, because knowing how important it is, and I understand it, but the fact that it's not everyone knows, the blending is just, it can be really very intricate, especially with all these layers, and you all are doing something so special. Someone watching us is saying, I don't know if I can bring these comments up, how wonderful, and many people are saying so much they love the XO. Someone had a question for you that I was going to bring up, if I can bring that up. Well, they said, What are your favorite plantation releases? Dan Silva says mine are the 1998 and the St. Lucia 2005. Do you have any favorite? Okay, here it is. Here's Dan Silva. Do you have a favorite one? This is Dan's. 2005 is one of yours too. St. Lucia is one of your favorites as well, huh?
This one I always have on my desk. This
Yep.
is my baby and one of the favorite things that I've ever drunk in my 22-year-old career.
What
It's
do you?
absolutely delicious. And Saint Lucia is actually an incredible distillery because it's very similar to West Indies in the ways that this is like a museum. These guys have so many different type of stills that they make so different types of products. So they have an array of product that's just incredible. And we used to have some Saint Lucia rums because at one point Alexander was very close to the master blender, a master distiller of Saint Lucia distillers. His name was Laurie Barnard, and they worked on some different vintages like that together. And 2005 to me is one of the most beautiful things that they ever came out with. It's absolutely delicious. The 1998 is probably talking about the Guadeloupe.
Guadeloupe, yeah, that's the one I saw. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. I should meet this gentleman because it looks like him and I have very much the same taste.
He really enjoys that. Is that
Yeah, that Guadeloupe was incredible too, and
that we could find the St. Lucia?
well, this one is old. And actually, the last time I had some of that was at Porco Lounge. I had a really good night that night. Yeah.
So you really have to look at those for those tiki bars. And definitely look for those, y'all. When you're in different cities, look for some great tiki bars. I know. Do you have any very favorite tiki bars in the whole country? You mentioned a couple earlier, I think.
Well, Devil's Reef is just an incredible
Yep.
place. It's all of them. They have their own signature. They source a lot of different things of what they do. There are so many books about it, so many references. And then there is more like exotic cocktails, less tiki. So it's not always just tiki full blast, So there is many variations of this. Just like you have many variations of a coffee. You have a very strong coffee, rustic. At the end of the day, it's still caffeine, right? And then tiki is very much like this. You have some of it that's like super strong tiki, and then light tiki, but still those drinks that are complicated to a point where you could never make them at home. They have so many syrups and different things that they put in there, but it tastes delicious. It's just balanced. It's one of those plates. I'm telling you, this is a 3 stars kitchen. This is one of those plates that they put out in front of you. You eat it in 5 minutes. You feel bad about it, but at the same time, you're so happy about yourself.
That's that sounds incredible, man. I'm really I'm loving this XO. This is I was going to say creme brulee is one of the things we were
coconut.
Yeah.
No, like macaroon.
Yes.
That coconut come from something that a lot of whiskey drinkers, and I'm sure you do know very well, Tom, whiskey lactone.
The lactone, right? Yeah.
And then that whiskey lactone comes from the bourbon cask. 10 years of aging in tropical climate, so 8% evaporation every year. Okay, with a lot of that American oak, so that has a lot of lactone to it. Once it comes to France, guess what? It's really gonna pop like beautifully. It's gonna shine like a sun in your face, and that's exactly what we try to do here, without doing it like so much like of a one dimension. But you get a lot of that coconut, macaroon, specific taste to it. There's also a lot of the pastry like almond, mascarpone, type of character as well.
Right.
And that spice, cinnamon, and almond really come from a different part of the blend, which is actually Barbados rums aged tropically in Amburana cask.
Okay.
So we don't use only oak here. So I mean, this blend is nuts.
It is nuts. No, there's so many layers of this. And it's interesting. The place it starts, the place it goes. Just the influence of the French, the barrels, the temperature, the atmosphere. It's really incredible. Someone says here they're asking about, is this 1998 Gaia Ucho? Received as a gift. Is that another one that you enjoy?
That one is an ovni. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, this one I don't know if you say ovni. It's like an UFO. That's a UFO. It's an unidentified flying object, which I love very much. Um, this is another collaboration that we did with our good friends at Ocho.
Right.
And you know what? This is some of Alexander likes to call that like the taboo stuff. It's like if you say to anybody in the world, okay, I'm gonna use agave cask on rum, people will be like, "You're crazy. You are Satan. That's what you are." And then he decided to like take it as a challenge, and he has that very good friend at Tequila Ocho. It's like, let's do this together. When I'm not gonna be by myself, being devilish. I'm just gonna do this with you. And then they decided to really collaborate on different things. Actually, Ocho did some things also in plantation cask and in Ferrand cask, cognac cask. That was also a little bit pushing the boundaries of tequila. But you know what? It's fantastic. It's got a lot of that herbaceous, almost greenish quality to it. And remember, those Guyanese rum always give you that chocolate bitterness, sometimes like that. I don't like the term plantain there, but it's more like that grassy note. So guess what? The grassy note and chocolate note of Guyanese rum go extremely well with the agave.
Wow.
And we did it. Excuse me, I didn't do anything. They did it. It's just an incredible release. And
Right.
I don't know, who's the gentleman who asked this. What's his first name, but he's very lucky to have a bottle of this.
Wow.
We made 12 cask for the whole world, and we'll never make that again. It was just a lucky experiment that
Wow.
we just put out there, and I hope he likes it. If he's open it, it's very specific. I would not serve that to all of my friends. I would make sure first that one, they like tequila, two, they like Guyanese rum. So you probably sometimes filter a lot of friends,
Right.
but the combination of both is just delicious. It's very subtle too. It's not like agave in your face. Far from this. It's also a higher proof, so that's also where you cannot really serve that to everybody. Again, this is for a very discerning palate that really likes agave spirits.
Excellent. No, that's wonderful. It's one of our friends on Twitter, Big Win, says he really likes it. He says yes. And again, for those of you watching us, you can ask your questions below on YouTube and Facebook, and tweet back to us on Twitter. We are so happy we're glad to have our second half here with Guillaume, streaming live on Bourbon Blog. We do this every night, Guillaume. It's our quarantine drinking team series. We've been doing, I think, about a month and a half or so since however long ago the quarantine started. We started interviewing our favorite people in the business, like Guillaume, every night to bring you all a sip of something good. Let's talk about the quarantine just for a moment and COVID. How has this affected Plantation Rum, Maison Ferrand, and what's been happening your own way? How have you all been helping out?
Well, so day one, right? So for us, day one is really March 15th,
right?
March 16th.
Right.
That was our first crisis sale. That's what we call it. Every morning, we get together with production, both in Barbados and in Cognac, and we talk about every day's challenge. That's one thing we do every day, because one, we're a family, so we care about each other, and two, we don't want to stop. We want to find a way to continue through this, and at the same time be responsible and make sure that we protect ourselves, we protect each other, but also the people around us. So to observe a quarantine and make spirits at the same time is a very complicated proposition.
Right.
And these guys made it happen in the rules of the quarantine in France, in the rules of the quarantine in Barbados. So, two different governments with different sets of rules. But I'm very proud to say that our teams, both in Cognac and in Barbados, never closed, never ceased production. Even at one point, when we needed to bottle some orders because we still had to fill some orders for some distributors in the United States.
Right.
The bottling line, the guys at the bottling line could not make it. They were closed because they were like staying home. The masons, we have a team of masons that do a lot of work at the distillery and they renovate houses around the distillery. These guys obviously are not working now because we had to put a hold on all those projects. They're like, you know what? I don't care. I'm gonna come and bottle your plantation rum. So those guys, they have big hands, right? Those things. See those things, the straw, they're still put on by hand.
Wow.
So those guys with their big hands, with a mask, right, walking 6 feet from each other, were bottling Plantation XO, Plantation 5 year for our distributors because for them it was important that the company doesn't close and that we can still ship and bottle all the rum that we made and that we blended in cognac. And I'm very proud about those guys. Frankly, thinking about it, it's like it makes me. I'm in my office, quarantine, like distancing myself, and these guys are out there bottling rum for us, And another team that did an incredible job too was, in Barbados on day one. These guys, they didn't even ask anybody. They started producing gel for the island. So we were told by the government to stop the activity. They told the government, we make alcohol that might be useful for hospitals. And they said, okay, you produce alcohol. And then they said, okay, we're going to produce alcohol. And you know what? We're going to make the gel as well. And we'll donate it to the island. So they gave it to all the fire stations on the island. So super proud, and since 1893, West Indies Rum has been open and has never closed. Since 1893, West Indies Rum has been distilling rum and never closed for one day because they distill 24/7. With COVID-19, you would think that they would stop distilling for a few days, right? Even with COVID-19, that distillery never closed since 1893.
That's many years, and you're continuing to go forward and doing great work for the world, for the community. That's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah, that's great, and they're doing it also for the neighboring islands. For the small islands out there, they need alcohol. They need for hospitals. They need and they're doing it. They're shipping.
That's great. Well, we're glad to hear that. We salute those teams and everything you all are doing. And as we look forward, I think one question I've been asking everybody is, what do you imagine COVID-19, this whole crisis, will it change the way we drink, what we drink, how we tell the stories of whether it's rum, whiskey? How will it affect the spirits business going forward? What do you think?
So I think there is not really a back to normal type of situation anytime soon. I think that it's just after all basically a month discussing that every day,
Right.
looking at all the different things that are happening in the world. I think that until we have a vaccine, we will have a different way of getting together and drink. That's for sure. People will be living with the pain, with a very painful environment. We'll learn how to live with it, and then we will adapt to a certain mode of consumption for a while.
Right.
And then, when there is a vaccine, I think that we will feel confident about definitely going out and drinking close to each other in bars. I'm sure bars will start doing business again. Of course, I cannot see people, having a happy hour like this anymore after. I mean, I cannot see people doing this for 2 years. That's for sure. So bars will probably be less crowded. There will be regulations on how close you can be to the next table, or
Rated.
the size of parties. It's like you cannot have probably 25 people at the same table, that kind of thing. Frankly, that's I have talked to some of my friends that own bars, and they're already thinking about different systems that they will have to put in place. It will change a lot of things in the way that they also make drinks, cook out there. Like sanitizing the bar will become an obsession, probably pretty much every week. So a lot of things will change that way. And but at the end of the day, I think once we find a vaccine, humans will basically resume exactly what they were doing before. And we'll see what happens. In the meantime, we're trying to service our distributors the best we can,
Yeah.
make good rum, never stop. We haven't stopped any of our projects. Everything we have in back burners for making great products is still very active, I can tell you this.
Right.
uh, we think that, and we strongly believe that there will always be a need for the beautiful things of life,
Yeah.
and one of those beautiful things is delicious spirits. So that's why we'll never stop making them.
So well said. And I think that's something that we've all been looking forward to. At the end of the day, no matter if we're working from home, if we have been working and we come home and during the quarantine, we're looking forward to great spirits and an amazing rum like yours. And, there's been a real, I'll leave it with this. I know that people have talked about, bourbon. Bourbon's grown so much, whiskey's grown so much. Rum, the consumption of rum has also grown
Mhm.
a lot. Dark spirits in general, the last 5-10 years. The future of rum. What do you think of that? I'm having you predict the future for us. So,
The future of rum is very bright,
yes,
and so was the past, by the way. Huh? The future of rum is very bright because it has an incredible heritage,
yes,
and I think respecting its heritage and learning from it will allow us to do beautiful things in the rum category.
I
And
agree.
this is how American whiskey became so big.
Right.
Because they looked at the past and what was done, and there was many different techniques that were put to life. Again, there was some sort of renaissance, the renaissance of bourbon. It was exactly like this, and then all of a sudden, there was so much education about American whiskey and bourbon, and people got into it. And I just hope that rum will follow. I don't hope. I'm sure rum will follow the same path, because I've been doing this for 20 years now, and I can tell that people are really getting into it,
They
and
are.
that's a lot of fun.
And a lot of whiskey fans and bourbon fans trying rum out, and vice versa. So it's such a pleasure to have you on the show, Guillaume. And thanks for all those who've been asking great questions. If you did watch this segment and you didn't watch the first, go back on the same social media channel, Twitter, YouTube, or Facebook. Watch what we did earlier. We had a little break in between to creatively grab a drink. And Guillaume, to you and the Plantation team, Alexandre, to the whole Maison Ferron family there, Félicitations on what you've done in the business, and
Thank you.
continued great wishes, and thanks for your support. We love featuring your all's rum and tasting with you all.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Tom. It was a pleasure. The perfect way to end the day. Thank you.
Yeah, no, great way to end the day, and thanks to for all those who watch us here on Bourbon Blog. We will be back with more tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern as we talk with Sespe Creek Distillery. And we're going to pour one last drink here. Yes.